And now, ladies and gentlemen, we're blessed to have with us two great, outstanding gentlemen. One, a great jurist, a thinker, Princeton, Notre Dame, brilliant. He's made his mark in New Jersey, and on Fox News, Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge? And the second gentleman is from the Action Network, Bishop. This man, he may not be AME, but he can preach. And he's from the Action, he's been a voice particularly in the field of reentry, one of the most powerful voices in this nation, Reverend Al Sharpton. So, thank you, everyone. Could the gang in the back behave? It's all the politicians. So the first thing is, we're blessed. By the way, this makes sense. Judge Napolitano's on my right, and Reverend Sharpton's on my left, but I didn't say anything. One of the things, and we're going to hear from Mark, and we're really looking forward to his keynote address and what Coke Industries have done and what they believe in. But what we're trying to change the debate here today. And when we have leaders like whether it's Senator Stack and Mayor Fulop, Mayor Baraka, Mayor Kelleher, and from all aspects of the spectrum, the political spectrum, is that we're with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation trying to say this is all of our business. This is a shared responsibility. So first, I just would like to ask Judge Napolitano, who happens to be good friends with Reverend Sharpton on a personal basis, if you could look at reentry and see where we are today as a nation, where do you think it looks like in the next 10 years?
Well, Governor, thanks very much for having me here and inviting me to share my thoughts. And even though we appear to be opposite numbers on cable TV, the Reverend Al and I are very good friends. Sometimes we get in trouble for being too friendly with each other, but not in this environment. My years on the bench, in which I sat in Hackensack and Bergen County and in Freehold in Monmouth County, were not marked by anything like what we have today. They were an era in which the legislature compelled us to sentence people who shouldn't have been in jail and to sentence them for far longer than they should have been. And the courts reluctantly and today regrettably took the position that they were subject to the legislature and they were going to go ahead and do it. Today we see a realization that most of the people in jail today do not belong there in the first place. There are too many criminal statutes on the books, and crime is no longer defined as harm. It is defined as however the legislature or the Congress wants to define it. So we are confronted with an enormous problem. And the problem is too many people in jail for crimes where they didn't harm anybody, and now they come out, and they are confronted with no place to go and nothing to do. As was said in one of the earlier panels, we are light years ahead of the rest of the country. Like Reverend Al, I get to travel all over the country to speak to all kinds of groups, political groups, religious groups, think tanks, judges, and lawyers in my case, a lot of them. And I don't know of anything quite like what Governor McGreevey has done and what all of you are doing here. So this is a spark that must be ignited all over the place, and this is a program that requires a lot of courage on the part of the legislature to recognize that it is better for the public if fewer people go to jail, if there are fewer laws on the books, and if when people come out of jail there is a place for them to go so that they can be redeemed and come back into society in which they have self-esteem and in which they make contributions.
Thanks, Judge, and thanks for that powerful witness. Rev, I think when I walk through a prison or a jail that there's so much economic denigration in this country and tragically still racism. how do we move past that legacy to focus as much on merging opportunities for people when they come back, as opposed to, as Judge Napolitano said, willingness to put people behind those walls?
Well, I think I see the judge gave me the dead mic.
You're starting, Reverend.
Yeah, here we go. Here we go. But and I think that one of the ways you start is by what you're doing here today. When you can get us to talk about this with unlikely people, then I think society has to stop and listen to what's being said rather than take sides. The judge is right. He and I have always been very good friends, even though we may disagree. And I think that the rancor and the animosity in the country has brought us to where we don't look at common sense solutions. The fact of the matter is nobody should want people in jail that don't belong there. That's one. I mean, that's not Republican, that's not Democrat, that's not, whether you for whoever. No one should want that. And the other fact is everyone needs to understand they're paying for it. So before we deal with whether we're going to take care of immigrants or not, we are taking care of inmates that ought not be inmates. All of us are. And when you can have the judge and I sit on a stage together, when you can have the Koch brothers involved, who I disagree with on a lot of things, but have to salute them on having the courage to do that, I think that will lead to a change, because then the divisions come down and people start to say, well, wait a minute, they must be saying something important. And that is why I think what you're doing and what you've done with this program is so important, why I wanted to be a part of it. Because for you to do this, given where you've sat and your credibility, is important, and it gives you the unique reach that you can call somebody like me and somebody on the opposite, and both of us will respond, because we know that you are a person that does not play a divisive game or that really is not concerned about it. The fact is that the ramifications of what the judge raised, of people being locked up wrongly, the ramifications goes in our community. It tears up families. It gives children no father at home or no mother. It hurts the community because they come back in a community that there's no housing. In some cities, public housing, they legally can't even stay in. And you got no jobs for them. And so you not only have the problem of inmates there that shouldn't be there, you have the recurring problem of what are you going to do when they come out, laws against them that limit them, so they come out feeling they never should have went in, and in many cases they're right, and now they're labeled for life. And the community they come in incurs that wrath, that anger, and those negative effects. That's why we've got to come together, because we're all impacted by it.
Amen. Thank you, Reverend. Bishop, he may qualify for an AME seminary.
But he'd have to run the seminary.
But I just want to, Reverend Sharpton, and Bishop Ingram earlier talked about the moral imperative. And one of the challenges is employment and the difficulty, frankly, of expungement, the difficulty of moving back into civil society. Even in this past congressional session, the difficulty that Senator Booker had in moving legislation. How do we change both the laws to, if somebody has come back and somebody's abided by the rules, how do we allow them to recover their legal integrity so that they're not carrying the scarlet F for felony for the rest of their lives? It's almost as if, people are clapping are people who have returned. So how, I read there was a book, both Reverend and Judge talked about in colonial America. There's a notion that crime was a sin, and after you had done your time, you were afforded redemption, and you were welcomed back in community. But today, redemption never occurs, and you carry that burden beyond original sin for the rest of your life. And we as a people, how do we get past that, Judge?
Well, we have to change a lot of statutes. We have to change start by changing people's attitudes. Look, we're in an inner city here, the great inner city of Jersey City. This attitude that we all share in this room needs to spread throughout the state and needs to go to Bergen County, and the mayor from Toms River is aware of this, in Ocean County. This attitude, this change in the way we view the corrections industry in New Jersey needs to pervade throughout the state so that legislators recognize the laws have to be changed. When you commit a crime and do the time and come out and you still have stigma, you still have bitterness and anxiety and hatred toward the system. That should not be. When you do the time, there should be no further punishment that stays with you. Now, how do you do that? Well, you have members of the legislature here, former Governor Florio's here, you have Republicans, Democrats, liberals, conservatives, progressives, libertarians. We all happen to agree on this. This spark that Governor McGreevey has lit, and those of you who are privileged to work with him have continued to fan, this flame needs to burn all over the state of New Jersey. New Jersey can actually be a model and lead the rest of the country in redeeming people. Mark Holden, who's a dear friend of mine and general counsel to Koch Industries, is going to make an economic argument that it's actually less expensive to get people jobs and to get them houses and homes and get them training and prepare them for reentry into society in the long run than it is not to do that. It's actually economically advantageous to do it because they become productive members of society, they generate wealth, they pay taxes, they raise their children, and interact with society in a meaningful and lawful way. So we got to change a lot of laws. The expungement laws have to be made easier. The probation laws have to change. You know, it's a difficult task. It's a lot of work, and you've started it here, Jim.
So, and I want to ask Reverend, so why don't we all know that this doesn't work. We all know what the recidivism rates are within 3 to 5 years of release. And we're a good country of good people. Like, why do we keep doing it?
You know, Albert Einstein once said, you know, doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a change and getting none is sort of a sign of insanity. The law moves very slowly, too slowly. Even though it's 2016, we are laboring under laws that were written in an entirely different era. The last major revision of the New Jersey Criminal Justice Code occurred in the early 70s, when the attitude about prosecution and the attitude about what was a crime and what is not a crime are radically different than today. So there's nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. This is an idea that has come, and more people than the people in this room need to embrace the idea. But the people in the room are beautifully representative of everybody in the state of New Jersey. We all need to grab another 10 or 15 people who are not here and remind them of this problem. It affects everybody. The key is changing the laws and doing so methodically and soon.
Thank you, Judge. Rev, you get around the country, and you talked about the damage that this does to communities. And I remember a history teacher in high school said, Harry Beecher Stowe's Uncle Tom's Cabin did more for civil rights and the battle against slavery than all of the speeches about politicians, because people understood this was also about children. This was also about the next generation. And I see my friend Lizette, and I see people that are here that care about children. How do we, and there are all sorts of demographic studies and talking about what the impact is on the family. Could you speak to that?
No, I think that is something that needs to be dramatized more. Because even though we know that there are a lot of people that have done time, some significant time, for nothing, no one could argue that their children didn't do anything. and their lives have been ruined and displaced forever. I grew up in a single-parent home. No one could ever give me my father back. I don't care what I achieve in life. I don't care what I do in life. With a missing father, you always are guessing what manhood should be because you didn't directly do it. I tell my daughters that I'm going to make mistakes as a father because I'm learning how to do it because my father wasn't there. Well, imagine all of the kids that have grown up without a father at home who the system took for no reason. If we put their faces out there, maybe if they can't sympathize with those in jail, they can sympathize with the child who was robbed wrongly of having his daddy or his mother in some cases there. And I think that one of the ways of doing that is we've got to project those children. The other is what I think is the wisdom of what you're doing is getting unlikely people together to do it. I remember years ago, Dr. Charles Ogletree of Harvard had Mayor Ed Koch and I come and speak because both of us disagreed on everything politically. First, one of the first arrests I had leading a demonstration, Ed Koch locked me up. And we both went to Harvard to agree on the second chance legislation program of reentry in New York State. And I think that is what you do, is that you get people that, because nobody ignores unlikelies coming together. President Obama had Newt Gingrich and I tour together on education. If you got unlikelies to talk about the children and show the videos of the children, and then have the children talk about how my father's not here, my mother's not here, and then look at their case that they should never have been in jail, that can raise, as Bishop said, a moral question of not who's on the right or the left, but what is right. We do not need a country that does not deal with the morality of breaking up families.
Amen. Thank you. One of the other areas in reentry, and you see Ricky here and Tony, is that changing of behaviors. And Reverend, an old pastor said to me that thinking doesn't change behaviors, but new behaviors can change thinking. And our program is pretty rigorous. Everybody gets up, does morning prayer, does community meals. Everybody either goes to school or goes to work. Can you talk a little bit about changing the culture and how important that is in reentry? Like the young men that are here, everybody goes to work, everybody goes to school. We work hard to make sure they have that opportunity, but changing the culture to give them that sense of dignity.
No, by changing the culture, first of all, you change people's self-concept. You know, the Bible says, as a man thinketh, so is he. You've got to first change people's self-concept in order to change their thought process. And once their thought process is corrected by self-concept, what you do, tell them, get up, do your prayer, get up and deal with scriptures, then go to work. Well, you'd be surprised how many people never thought anyone thought they were worth having a job, worth having prayer. People want some kind of regimentation in their life because it's a sense of worth. Because when you don't have anyone that instructs you or that makes you go by something, they're really saying you're worthless, and I don't expect you to be able to do anything anyway, so do whatever you want to do. And I think that becomes significant. I was in the Caribbean yesterday, and I was telling some youngsters, again, I grew up in a single-parent home, and I don't even think I told the judge this. I said, do you know why I wear my hairstyle like this? They said, no. I said, you think it's out of an error. James Brown, the soul singer, took me on as a son. His son got killed. And we were flying to Washington one day. I was a kid. And he said, Reverend, I said, yeah. He said, I want you to do your hair like mine. I said, okay. And nobody knew who I was then. Took me to his hairdresser, he styled his hair like mine. Years later, someone asked me, why did I do that? I said, because no man ever made me feel I was worth emulating them. I would have given anything for my father to say, I want you to be like me. James Brown did that for me. You don't know the value, Governor, of you getting people up in the morning that makes them feel somebody cares that I got up in the morning. Somebody cares that I have a job. And I think that we've got to build that self-worth and that value in people, because if you build a value in people, they will make sure that they do the rest. But you got to open the door. If you just crack the door, I'll get through. But crack the door for me to come through.
Hey, Reverend Al, did James Brown also suggest that you wear those socks? I want a pair.
No,
They're
but he
fabulous.
put me on the good foot.
They're fabulous. So, not too long ago, the Reverend and I were on a flight together. In front of me, I don't know how this group got together. In front of me is Bill O'Reilly. Next to me is Al Sharpton. Behind Sharpton is Chuck Schumer. So Schumer,
And we all prayed that the plane wouldn't go down, right?
right. So Schumer stands up and says, "Let's do a selfie. Nobody will believe that the four of us are together and we actually get along." And that 6'8" grouch that I work with said, "I don't want to do a selfie. My picture's taken enough." So we never took the picture. No. But the four of us did kibitz quite a bit. Look, in our society, where we choose the government, the law follows culture. So culture, cultural attitudes, open-mindedness, welcoming of people, redeeming people, all of these are value sets that must spread before we can expect the law to change. Not everybody's like, in the legislature, is like Brian Stack and what other legislators might be here. They're going to move in the direction of salvation when the culture pushes them there. So what is happening here, man, if you can do this in other counties, Reverend Al and I will come to wherever you do this, because the public needs to know. And the public's attitude needs to change. We can make a lot of sophisticated arguments and pat ourselves on the back that we're all doing the right thing. But we have to get out there and change the culture, and cultural attitudes will eventually mature into a change in the law.
So do you think of this in this presidential debate, whenever it gets to criminal justice, and I'd like to give recognition to Governor Christie, because he's spoken forcefully on the question of addiction and on the question of reentry. But do you think that we're achieving a platform where there's bipartisan consensus on the need to, I know we're blessed with Mark here, but there's the need to change how America does reentry and does prisons?
Well, you have in this room the best United States attorney in the United States today, Paul Fishman. And, you know, Paul's the chief federal prosecutor in the state of New Jersey. He operates the largest office and has the most FBI agents and most assistant U.S. attorneys working for him of any U.S. attorney anywhere in the country. And he understands the need for redemption and reentry. Is this going to filter its way into the presidential campaign? Man, it is so divisive, and I live with this, Reverend Al lives with this. It's a blessing to be here in Jersey City and not to be staring at a television screen for an hour. It is so divisive, yet I haven't heard any of them addressing seriously the problems that we're addressing here today. So I suggest to you, it's a state issue, at least at this point. Obviously, it needs to change nationally, but we've made such progress in New Jersey. I suggest that we continue making the progress here to change people's attitudes so they can grab legislators by the lapel and say, are you aware of this? Are you aware of that? Get people like Brian Stack to get legislation out there so there can be debate on the legislation, and legislators from Sussex County who might not even think of this issue can be aware of it because they'll see this proposed legislation on their desks.
I agree. I think that clearly it needs to, New Jersey can be the model for the nation. And I think, I don't agree with Governor Christie on many things, but he has spoken out on this. And I think that both parties, through their nominating conventions, ought to raise this. And again, I think that it goes beyond politics. And I am absolutely willing with the judge to go anywhere on this to show that this is not right or left, Republican or Democrat. And he's already arranged for me with with Stack's legislation. I can go in your district. I'll endorse your opponent to help you out, Stack, if you just get this legislation going.
Thank you. We have time for about 3 questions. Any questions from the audience, Steve? Steve? Oh, Steve, why don't you? Thank you.
So we all know the battles back and forth from both sides on the liberal, conservative side. On this particular topic of getting prisoners back into society, are we finding a common ground between both sides of the parties to work on this project?
Oh, in a word, absolutely. Not just symbolically, because the Reverend Al is black and I'm white, he's liberal and I'm a libertarian, he works for MSNBC and I work for Fox News, but substantively, there is an agreement on this across the board that this is a problem that needs to be addressed and needs to be addressed now. I don't even know of any substantial resistance to this other than lethargy and ignorance, but it's not an ideological resistance. It's a resistance from people who aren't aware of the fact that this can be changed. You agree, Al?
I definitely agree. I think that it is substantive. This is not symbolic, which is why we can cite things that we are doing. And I think, and make the commitment that we are willing to do this all over the state. I think it is absolutely more than just somebody giving some people some talking points.
Sure. There's the mic right there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to preface my question by saying that 1 year, 2 weeks ago, I was released from prison after 25 years for an unjust and very high-profile conviction. Now, as someone who has been spotlighted in the media in one of the most negative ways, one of my passions in coming out into a brand new society is a bit ambitious, but what I'm hoping to do is to change public perception about what it means to have done a significant amount of time in prison. So my question is, how willing are we, the people in the room today, our panelists up here up front, in supporting initiatives that bring and spotlight people who have done time in prison, came home and are doing some absolutely amazing things, but they're the success stories that we rarely hear about. And I believe that the media can play a large portion in helping us reshape the stereotypical images that we have of formerly incarcerated people.
Well, you got 2 guys from the media right here, and we have vastly different audiences, and both of those audiences will soon begin to know a lot more about your wonderful story, which gives me goosebumps on my arms because you don't even look 25 years old, and the wonderful stories of others in this room as well. We have to do it.
Thank you.
I'd like to get your story, so try to get it to me.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Dock, and don't leave Union County out. Please don't leave Union County out. Racist, horrible, don't leave them out, Governor. Make sure you get there. Then I'd like to ask you, Governor, because we've been doing this is the 3rd year. So in biblical mathematics, 3 is usually completion. So do you think that some of the things we talked about in the 1st year, the 2nd year, do you think that we've accomplished some of those things? Have we reached some benchmarks here? That's one. And then particularly when we talk about surcharges, because we have a lot of people in this room that worked in other areas before they started working in reentry that were part of the problem. So now they working in reentry, and so now they want us to look at them as if they are part of the solution.
Sure.
So what the hell? So go ahead.
No, go ahead, because we got to move on because we only got these guys.
Okay, so you're going to answer that. So particularly talk about when we talked about we had conference 1.
Yep.
We talked about doing the safe surrender program in the jail, in the prison before they come home. We talked about surcharges. Like, for instance, surcharges, I believe, started 3 years under you when you were the governor. So however we started, let's
Sure.
go back
Let me
and
just,
change it.
So what we started, no, we got to get the people who haven't asked a question, and we've only I apologize. 3 things that I want to say. One is with bipartisan support, Democrats and Republicans, and the governor, we have funding for New Jersey Reentry Corporation and the Volunteers of America. So we're in Atlantic City, we're in Mercer County, Trenton, we're in Newark, we're in Jersey City, we're in Patterson, and we're in Toms River. And then there'll be a legislative process again. So we're expanding. Second, thanks to the leadership of both the Parole Board and Department of Corrections, we're now in the prisons. I go into the prisons, Shay, we go into the state prisons and we recruit people. So we're creating linkages between what's happening in the prisons and people going into the outside. Let me just say, on so many other issues, on surcharges and expungements, we're not where we need to be. It does need to be legislative changes. What we have is a partnership with the State Bar Association to address the problems as they are now, but we have to do so much more to enable people to rid themselves of the legacy of what's happened in the past. And that's where legislation is so important. That's not the focus of today, but it's also what we're doing with the New Jersey Reentry Corporation. So what our focus is integration of services to help people reenter into community and make themselves whole. And do I feel like we've made significant? Yeah, our reentry, our recidivism rate is 19.2%, as opposed to a national recidivism rate of 68%. Our average employment rate is 58%. So we're getting there. We've made changes. But do we have so much more to do? This is going to be my life's work.
Mine too.
So, amen. Go ahead, quick. Thank you.
Okay, yes. My name is Carlos Christian. I came down here from Columbus, Ohio. What we do is we go inside of the penitentiaries and work with the individuals before they get released. Me, myself, I started selling drugs when I was 13, got incarcerated at 19, did a 10-year prison sentence. My son was 3 months old when I got incarcerated. When I came home, his mother signed custody over to me. My son is now 18 years old. He's going to college because he's able to emulate who I am today. What I always tell individuals is that you have to increase the value in the minds of those who are incarcerated and then increase the value in the minds of the society the way that they view the incarcerated. Once you do that, then you will be able to reduce the recidivism rate. And also attack mass incarceration, because my son is not going to prison. He's taking up business management. The biggest component in this prison reentry process is the actual individuals who are incarcerated. And I wrote the book, Prisoner Without Bars, because I became free while I was incarcerated. And this is the recipe. I've been out for 9 years, and we have a stronghold in Ohio. I created the foundation, starts within organization, and we are powerful out there. I did 18 institutions in the month of February, and I did it on Harriet Tubman. I freed 1,000 slaves. I would have freed 1,000 more had they known that they were slaves. See, when I was selling drugs, I didn't understand that I was a slave. This is what has to be done. I appreciate you guys.
Thank you, Carlos. Hey,
God love you, Carlos.
Carlos, you sure you didn't take that marketing degree in college?
I'm telling you, yes, I did. I graduated from business management inside of the penitentiary. I graduated from administrative office technology as well, learned the computers, and I also learned Spanish while I was incarcerated as well.
Amen. Carlos, thank you. Thank you for traveling.
Do we get a book, Carlos?
Yes, you do.
You. All right, and we want this time to be questions for Reverend Sharpton or for Judge Napolitano. Thank you. Thanks, Carlos. Hey, Carlos, how much did that book cost?
It's $20.
Make sure you collect it from Al.
Oh, exactly.
The judge got me.
And I take ATM, I take debit and credit.
I'm sure you do. All right, a question for Reverend Al or for Judge
Yes.
Napolitano? Thanks,
Good
Carlos.
afternoon, gentlemen. First off, my name is Perry Shaw. I'm a retired New Jersey State Corrections Officer, Executive Director of A Better Way, and Chairman of the Mercer County Reentry Task Force. I have a request first and then a question. My request is for Reverend Al Sharpton. Reverend Al, Trenton would love to have you come speak. We will have you come with open doors and open arms. So I would love to talk with you about coming to speak to Trenton, New Jersey, because there's a healing that's needed in our city.
No, I would love to do it. I just did something with the correction officers in New York. We went to Rikers Island together just last week. I'd love to do it.
My question for the panel and also for everyone in the room, we talk about some of the problems and issues when it comes to reentry, specifically number one, which is employment. My thing is this, we're number one for a lot in New Jersey when it comes to incarceration. Why can't we be number one with figuring out how to modernize training programs inside the prison? So when individuals come home from prison, they can be trained for modern jobs 21st century. Because being a corrections officer, I've seen when individuals are in there for a long period of time, they're there for tea or sand, they're there for laundry, they're there for different things that are no longer modern in today's society. If we're trying to have individuals come out and not return back to prison, let's not build them up to fail. Let's show them how to succeed. And training is the way to succeed. So how do we come together and make this change so the training can be modernized in the prison system?
I think that's a very good point. I think that two ways. One, I think you've got to go back to, as the judge and the governor said, to legislation where we have the actual training programs there. But second, I think that as we put together these alliances, that we should approach the private sector, who needs to understand it is in their interest to deal with having reentry because it makes their consumer base safer, it makes their cities flourish, and I think we can get them to partner with these kinds of groups like the governor's doing to really have training and some of the jobs available for those that are reentering. We need to put the pressure on the private sector together, and I don't think it would take a lot of pressure. I think that if they are approached by people to know that what we're asking is above the politics, that a lot of them would embrace it.
Amen.
Thank you. We have time for about two more questions. Go ahead.
First, Reverend Sharpton, I want to say nice socks. My name is Gary Meyer. I'm a convicted nonviolent drug offender who was caught in 1992 selling drugs because I had a gambling addiction. I've got released out of prison in 1994. I became the head chairperson of a well-known 12-step gambling program, running the gambling addiction line in my house for free. Put myself through the Wharton School at University of Pennsylvania, graduating in the top 5% of my class. I did it on my own dime. I was precluded from all student loans and grants. I own a tech company. I speak 4 languages. I just came back from Europe a few weeks ago. I can't travel freely. I'm not able to expunge my record in New Jersey. I've had no subsequent problems. I'm almost 50 years old. It happened when I was 24. I'm the animal coordinator for the city of Millville as a volunteer 15 hours a week. I'm formally endorsed by the NAACP, 2 New Jersey former prosecutors, a member of the New Jersey Parole Board. I've met with legislators. I'm getting nowhere. I'm getting nowhere. And this, to me, is a wonderful thing, but what are we accomplishing? I'd really like to call people to take action and change expungement laws because I am precluded, as well as so many others, from assimilating and becoming a productive member of society. I've been asked to be a CEO of a law firm, actually a medium-sized law firm. I passed all the things, substantial compensation, even though I've done well for myself, but my record came up. A hedge fund also approached me. I'm a mathematical guy. And my record comes up. Although I've done well, where does it end? The 8th Amendment of the Constitution precludes cruel and unusual punishment. I have a pardon sitting on Governor Christie's desk for 15 months. When does it end? When does it end? So I'd like to see some action out of here instead of just rhetoric, with all due respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Judge, do you want something? That expungement? Yeah.
It would be high on the list of laws to be changed immediately, the expungement laws. Laws that would liberate you rather than suppress you.
And just, Gary, with our New Jersey Reentry Corporation and broad-based partners, like we review laws and model laws with the National Conference of State Legislatures and the National Governors Association. So it's something that's very important. because the expungement process is so onerous, is so lengthy, is so time-consuming, that frankly, our lawyers that are volunteer lawyers don't focus on expungement because our clients are facing immediate problems of probation and parole and violations and the probability of being locked up again. But expungement has to be a priority so that people like you can move on.
I just want to say that respectfully, Governor, I'm not allowed to have my record expunged. It's a second-degree CDS nonviolent drug offense.
Yeah.
And I've met with legislators, and you hear promises, but again, inaction.
Yep.
And I'm preaching to the choir because some of the people that I'm even sitting with are also felons. And, like, when does it end? I don't know, like, I could go on and list everything. I'm an urban promise volunteer. I've spoke every year to Cherry Hill East high school kids, all for free. I'm not a 501c3. I do everything for free. I got pictures on my wall giving bulletproof vests to the police department. What else can I do? Walk on water? Enough is enough. Let's get things done here. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Go ahead, one last. Thank you, Gary.
Hi, my name is Brittany Doherty. I'm originally from Columbus,
Gary,
Ohio.
I just want to say thank you, Gary, for your courage.
And I just wanted to come up here and thank you all for being here, as well as for everyone in this room. I am currently trying to take on a project which is cycling across the country from Boston, clear across to Oregon into LA. And my goal is to work with different organizations across the country who work in the prison system and also work in the jails. And so far, I am getting into 16 different organizations, supporting it all on my own. It's a big task, over 5,000 miles, and you said you would meet me, right?
Yes.
We are going to be there. So anyways, my question to you all is, for somebody who gets barely any support, I had a foundation that I was working with to raise money for all the organizations, and they left because I was working with prisoners, and they said it's not something that they believe in, and I just want
Could you just ask your question? I'm sorry.
Yes. What would you recommend to somebody who's trying to do this on their own with no support? And what is it that you've seen in success when reaching out to these organizations and working with this, I guess, diverse group?
Well, I'd like to just take a crack at it. One is, I think you heard again and again today that there is support out there in the church community, in mosques, in temples, in the law enforcement community. And so we work with many organizations and we share our network, obviously. So it's about people making partnerships. So I'd be glad to help you, provide any partnerships that we have that might be assistance. Judge?
It's a long, slow process of persuading people that the 70s mentality no longer makes sense. The laws have to change, and the donors have to cough up. You're going to hear more of that about donors and donations in the next group, I think, when Mark speaks.
Judge?
I think that I agree with both of what they said. The most productive way to go fishing is to go to a pond that there's fish. So I think that if the governor and others will relate to you where there are people that have already been supportive, that's where to go, rather than speculating, because there are people committed. It's that you've got to go and outline to them what you're doing and why it is workable, and they're willing to invest in it.
So I just have to wrap up because, I'm sorry. I just have to wrap up because we have lunch and we have Christina and we have the rabbi, and it's tough to keep on schedule, but this is good. So I guess, we started the conversation today. Bishop Ingram talked about hope, and I think there's a lot of hope in this room, but I also heard what Gary said about discernible results, and my friend Barbara asked, well, what have we accomplished? And I think you can see it in our clients. Talking about hope and results in the future. Any thoughts, Judge?
Well, my thoughts are that you're doing the work of the angels. This is not work that enjoys in broad, widespread public support, but it needs to. So the key is educating the people that are not here. This is a season of redemption in the major religions in the West. One of the greatest examples of redemption is seated on this stage right between Reverend Al and me, and that's the governor himself. This may be Holy Thursday, but sometime in the future it'll be known as the Feast of St. James McGreevy.
I don't think so. I think we've got a long way to go before that happens. Ask my daughter first.
Let me say this, and I do also join in praising and saluting your work, but I have a sister that was incarcerated, and when she got out, she talked about how tough it was. And I told her the story of Esther in the Bible, where her uncle Mordecai had told her to go to the king and talk about the oppression of her people. And she said, if I go, this or that may happen. And he sent word back to her, maybe you have come for such a time as this. There are people that are in this room that have done time wrongly, that have been unfairly treated, but you survived. You're here. Maybe you survived it for a reason. Maybe you are the symbol and the worker that we need at this time to help push this forward. Maybe you've come with all of the unfairness and injustice that you've had to endure for such a time as this to help others not to do it. So don't think about what you went through. Think about you got through. And you got through for a reason, and live up to the reason in your future rather than the unfairness of your past.
Amen. Could I just, if they want to, could we just ask any ex-offenders or graduates of our program to stand up, only if they want to? Raising their hands in the back. I told everybody, make sure. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I also want to recognize Councilwoman Joyce Waterman, who also does prison ministry, and Assemblywoman Angela McKnight for their leadership. And now I'm just going to call upon a special treat, and then I'll ask our panelists to sit down. Christina, and this is for Judge Napolitano and Reverend Sharpton and all of us. I want a mid-break. Where's this beautiful voice? And this is, as we know, Passover will happen soon, but this is Holy Thursday. And it's also understanding in all that God is always with us. And with that, I want you to introduce you to a magnificent voice, Christine.
Why should I feel discouraged? And why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, a constant friend is He. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. See, I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free, for His eye is on the sparrow, and I know He watches me. Whenever I am tempted, whenever clouds they arise, when songs give place to sighing, oh, when hope within me it dies. I draw the closer to him. From care he sets me free. Oh, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. Ooh, his eye is on the sparrow, and I know, and I know, and I know he watches over me.
And before I call the rabbi and blessing, can we have a round of applause for our great panelists? Reverend Sharpton, Judge Napolitano. Let's look at. And by the way, I think Judge Napolitano has the same hairstyle. Maybe you were both adopted sons. Where's Carlos? Carlos, go for 25.